we were talking about thoughts and how they kind of plague us. And one of the wonderful women followed up with an email to me sharing that in a Lord Mayor reading Zoom, there was a Mayor Baba's experience with thoughts and his extreme distress with the onslaught of thoughts rushing to him from the world. So this is what it says. It's called Marijuana is Born. During another stage of his regaining worldly consciousness, Mayor Baba began experiencing the thoughts of all human beings in the universe. The individual thoughts of those persons in the gross world, irrespective of whether they were near or far, would instantaneously pour into his universal mind at the moment they were created. Thought. The thought is in parentheses. The numerous thought waves were so forceful and so tremendously rapid, it is impossible for us to have an idea of their effect. The very process of infinite thinking was rushing through Baba's individual mind. He could withstand it only because his mind had become universal. For instance, a person's thoughts in America, the moment they were formed, would rush into Baba's universal mind. Thus, all the thought waves of all of humanity on earth would stream into and permeate Mayor Baba's universal mind in a few minutes. At the beginning of this particular stage of Baba's coming down, when his universal mind was starting to function, he was sitting alone by a canal at Sikkan. Within a few minutes, the force of the thoughts of thousands and thousands of persons on earth entered his universal mind. The impact of it was so tremendous, he became uneasy and restless. And in an attempt to break the shock, he submerged his head underwater in the canal under his individual mind until his individual mind found relief. Baba.
Wow.
Not much different than my mind.
That's why I see her in underwater all the time. I think she's washing her hair.
Wow.
How's that for a theme?
Oh my goodness.
It's interesting. I've never heard that before, Diane, that the sort of the avatars, or I guess whoever perfect master is in charge gets every single thought. My God, makes you want to be a little bit more policing of the kinds of things I think about.
Well, it didn't seem like there was any qualitative judgment here. It was just an onslaught of quantity.
Yeah. But, I guess like I'd want to be more
Selective.
lighthearted and, think about good things, beautiful things to try and make whoever is in charge over there that's suffering through all these thoughts just a little bit easier for them.
Lighten their load, my goodness. Yeah. Which he said we did. We did lighten his load with funny things.
I don't know if Mayor Prasad is here, but he was the one who came up with this topic, the culprit who came up with this topic for tonight. Basically, fear of humiliation. And, I've added the value of humiliation when employed by Baba. We'll talk about that later. But I said in the notice that if I were in charge of creation, I would, the creator, preserver, and destroyer, I would kind of cut back on the destruction. And one of the main things, I'd lessen the uncomfortable experience of humiliation. But then no one would ever realize their higher self, unfortunately. Oh, wait.
Thank you, Nan.
Yeah. So anyway, I know, when we empathize with someone who's being humiliated or humiliating themselves, I mean, it's a very embarrassing and uncomfortable situation. And, for some people, their whole lives revolve around avoiding humiliation. And, and that keeps keeps them away from the fullness and joy of life. And I have to deal with that, and I think everybody does. But there are many stories of how Baba worked on the mandali, on their fear of what other people think. We have a deep need to be accepted, but that is like a tremendous burden. And I know Erich once said that his life with Baba was nothing but humiliation and embarrassment. I never thought he was really complaining, but you know, the word humiliation, as you probably know, comes from the word humus, which means earth, so the humus. So the humiliation brings us down to earth, and which eventually leads to humility. And I think it led Erich would say in Mandali Hall from time to time, referring not only to referring to all of us, including the Mandali, we're all in the same boat. And it must have been that he was brought all the way down, so he knew he was in the same boat with all of us. Anyway, and we're all kind of striving to become dust.
I think he just became dust.
Where'd he go? We should probably give our best to carry on without him. So who here has, I'll start with my experience. I had, there's this great thing, like, because he was talking about the root of humiliation, how it leads to humility. And I think that's so true, that humility and the ability to be humiliated are peas in a pod. And I remember from a kids' TV show, there was a quote where they said, "The solution to shame is true self-humility." And yeah, I think it's true. You know, I think I love it. I think that in my experience, being a bit of a clown all the time, I find that great comfort in not getting a big head about what I'm supposed to be. And it's just so much more relaxing to not have the pressures of big expectations of me being such a big and important person and make everyone else think a certain way. So yeah, it's great. I was just sharing for that. If anyone else wants to share, pipe up.
Joshua, I don't, could you like go a little bit more into explanation, the two differences between shame and what did you say? Self-humiliation?
No, it's true humility.
Oh, true humility and shame. Okay, could you make the leap for me, please?
Okay, so if I'm ashamed of something, I'm
Uh-huh.
deeply ashamed, I'm beating myself up, I'm saying, I'm so terrible. What I'm secretly holding on to is an expectation for me to have been good. There's a secret pride in there of me saying, oh, I shouldn't have been that shameful. I should have been better than that shameful action. And if I was to say, I am just a monkey on a flying rock doing the best I can in a universe, and if I was trying to be humble about myself and trying to, trying to see myself as I am and as things are without the pretense of who I desperately, secretly want to be, then the shame no longer hurts me. This is what I find.
Without the expectation of being good or being a certain way, you just are a monkey on a rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
That's what
Thank
I
you.
feel.
Thanks.
I
Anyone?
also say
Oh.
something to
Oh,
what
yeah.
you just said.
Yeah, Diane, go for it. I'll get
It
Jayseema
was
wherever.
Mona was talking. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So just, I would like to add something. I think, if we love and accept ourselves as we are and drop, then everything else drops, whether it's shame or it's anything else that we may be labeling ourselves with. From my experience. Yeah.
So you do pretty well, Mona, you do pretty well with not kind of beating yourself up.
I definitely have a lot of working on that area. But I kind of know, like if, when if this is it, and then the layers, and, love is the solution.
Beautiful. Yeah. No, it's a whole work in progress. But okay. Oh, Jaysima, who's next?
Diane or Terry?
Ooh, a little louder, Jaysima. Yeah.
Yeah, Terry.
Thank you. So, J. Baba, everyone, growing up as my mom was a dancer, a ballerina, and we took ballet classes, which is a total perfectionism. And she was incredibly clean, and everything had to be perfect. I mean, you couldn't just like dust something off. You had to take everything off and clean it well and clean each item and put it back. It was always a big deal.
There's a Mayor Baba story like that.
Uh-huh. So I grew up thinking I had to be perfect, which is puts you in humiliation a lot, because it's really hard to be perfect, as we all know. So, but as I've gotten older, I think I can't tell you that I never do things that are, I don't feel as shamed as I used to. I think that I still don't like public speaking. I don't know if that's, I don't know about that. I think it just makes me afraid. I don't think it makes me feel like I'm gonna screw up, or I don't feel that way about that particular thing, because you were talking about that, Jeff.
Yeah.
But when it comes to just going through life, I don't know. I think I've let go of a lot. It doesn't mean that I don't get it sometimes, but I don't know, like once I became with Baba, for some reason, he says to blame everything on him.
Yeah, beautiful.
So I try to, and that's the good stuff too. Like when people give me kudos, I also don't take that and I give that to Bubba too. I don't I just want to stay like even keeled. I don't want to be like have a big head, or so I just stay with Bubba, and it helps me and give everything to him, and it helps me just be loving and kind.
And
You-
then since we're on mic, can I jump in? I don't know, Jeff, if you heard the quote that I had done about Mayor Baba and getting everybody's thoughts.
I heard the early part of that, and then my power went out. But yeah, I know the quote though. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
because I realize my own self-critic is so loud. It's such a part of my thinking. And to think that that is what I'm throwing Baba's way, as Josh said so eloquently in his lovely accent, I might want to look at the content of my thoughts if I can going forward. Hey, Baba.
Yeah. No, critical thoughts are one of the curses of being highly sensitive, being aware.
Paula.
Yeah, it's so as something to try to get through, and I think it takes a whole lifetime. But when you start off as a little kid being shamed, it's like, and growing up in that atmosphere, and then it's a big one, and it's hard to, and it is scary then to be, I used to not be able to talk to anybody. And still sometimes I can't, I lose my breath because and I don't know why. It's like, this is just nuts. but I was really shamed when I was really little. just about kind of being human. So that's just kind of another angle on it, because then there's humiliation, and you just kind of grow up with no self-esteem because there's something despicable about you, and that's kind of what I internalized. So it's like, what's good about it right now is, Baba told me when I was in the Samadhi, I've told you this before, when I said, okay, Baba, just take it all. And he said, I will, but I want you to know what you're giving me. So recently it's been really hard, but I feel like I know more about what I'm giving him. And then I read a thing this morning with Sheila Kalchuri, because she said, Baba, what do I do if I've done something bad? And he said, give it to me. So she had a habit of lying to her mother because she loved to climb on the roof and climb trees and do things that scared her mother to death. So she asked Baba, she said, Baba, they never got to touch his feet. And she said, Baba, could I touch your feet? Because she didn't want to say it out loud because Rama was right there and she had lied to her mother. So Baba had told her to put it on his feet. So he said, yes, she could. So she did that. But then she sat there thinking afterwards, did Baba really take it? And he really, he just astonished her, because he said right then, you don't trust me. Of course I take it. I'm in every atom of all the universes. So I know everything. I know all your thoughts. I know everything. So you're not trusting me. So that's kind of where I'm landing, is it's like just trying to get to where I trust Baba more. And I'm just who I am. And he can have all of it. And I hope, if I need to know something, he helps me know it. And so I can give it to him. Well, there you have that.
Yeah, beautiful. No, that is what Terry was saying too. It is the shortcut, to give all. Well, it actually gives us we have something we can give to Baba on a regular basis,
Yeah.
depending on how many problems we're having.
That, it was really interesting. I ran into that story. I mean, I opened the book and Baba gave it to me because I have a hard time believing that he's really taken it. Did you really take it? Did you really hear me? And over and over again, it's like he says, yeah, I helped you find your glasses, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, he does take it. But I think for me, it's like lately, I want to get to where it's so solid and I just really trust him, because he knows everything and he knows how to take care of it.
Just to mention that I brought this up with Darwin, because I was giving things to Baba and it didn't seem like anything was happening. But he said, what he said is you're giving things to layers to Baba. So you give him a layer and whatever you give to Baba is gone forever. But then there's a layer behind it that looks just like the thing you gave him. So it doesn't seem like anything happened. Give them that layer, and there's another layer that looks just like that one. It doesn't seem like it, but Darwin said, whatever you give to Baba is actually gone forever, but it's that one layer. And the beautiful thing is, he says, as you give things to Baba and he dissolves them, it makes more room for him to live in us. We're creating inner space. So it's well worth doing. He's clearing out that space so that he can live in us. Anyway, well, we got a few more hands up here.
Tony.
Hi. Okay, can you hear me? Yes. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, a little louder maybe.
Yeah, louder.
Louder. What's the matter? Okay, is that better? No.
Semi.
Semi. Okay,
You're-
is that better?
That's
I
good.
can speak more loudly and strangely. I'm among the things I do is I write, I sing, I'm an actor, I've performed and done things like that. And yet most of my personal work, I've been very, very afraid to put out there. In safe groups, at certain open mic communities, I'd be fine. Can you hear me? No.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I'd be fine. But clearly, most of what Baba has given me to give is not going far. And then COVID, the lockdown started, and Baba inspired me, clearly inspired me. I had seen a well-known singer do this from her living room, that I should just pour out everything I had, the poetry, the songs, the stories. And I did Facebook live streams, about 55 of them over a 3-month period, between 15 minutes and an hour and a half. And then I uploaded them to my YouTube channel, which I set up. But always, after I'd finished the performance, you have to kind of just go with it when you're performing. But after, and I would review it on the TV, on the screen here, and I would cringe a bit about this part, or how I did that, or what I did there. Oh, that sounded... And I glanced over, I have a wonderful photo of Baba here that I printed out, and it's just taped on a treadmill here. It's Baba as an old man. And for some reason, I really identified with that I could talk to Baba as an old guy with the old God man. And at one point, while I was looking at reviewing the live stream I'd just done, I glanced at Baba's picture, and he was so clearly saying to me, really tenderly, do you have to be so self-critical? And it was like, no, Baba, I don't have to be so No, I don't have to be so self-critical. So that was one big thing. The other was, it didn't gel for me until I did this concert on Thursday. I have noticed there are videos now of the Beatles rehearsing, say, for the Let It Be album, and they're all their rough cuts before they got to the final one that's perfect. And they make lots of mistakes, and John gets the words of his own song wrong. And so when I did the concert here on Thursday, I was really conscious about, all right, Baba, it's in your hands. I made so many mistakes. Words, a whole page of lyrics would disappear, and I had to edit in later after the song was over. And for some reason, all of it was fine. It's like, well, you don't expect to make mistakes? You're human. The idea of you trying to be perfect every time you're on, is nuts. And it's the fear, it's the fear of humiliation. It's the fear of humiliation. But when you just accept you're human, it sort of goes it went wonderfully for me.
Yeah, sometimes I find sometimes the imperfection is just perfect.
Yes.
I mean, Baba liked these plays that they put on, and people would forget their lines or coming at the wrong time. And those are some of the things that Baba liked most, is their mistakes. You know, it's Adi used to say, he doesn't want us to be perfect. He wants us to be perfectly human.
Yeah. Yep.
Slightly different.
Ronnie.
Hello. Paula, I was just thinking, when you were talking about the trauma of feeling shamed as a child, and for me, with some significant trauma in my life as a child, and then as I walked through my life, actually, and especially around issues with family, I have found that even as an adult, when I'm around my family, I am not very functional in terms of communication, except in a very light manner. And I used to give myself a really hard time saying, what is wrong that I cannot formulate my words, my thoughts, that I can formulate quite easily around others, but not around my family. It's like I go into this kind of state of just frozen somewhere inside. And then I was been studying a little bit the neuroscience of trauma, and in one of Bessel van der Kolk's books, he was saying when they scan the brain of someone who's in some kind of trauma, or it's acting out in the brain, that there's a lack of blood supply to a place called the Broca's area. And that's the area that puts words into your thoughts and feelings into words. And so it's actually not functioning. And when I read that, that was like, oh, that's great. Now I can have a bit of compassion for what's happening inside me, that actually, I can't speak because my brain's not functioning properly. And that really helped me to be gentle towards myself with that, and to get a bit quieter about it internally. So that was one thing. And then I was reading Bob Natu, one of his books, I'm not sure which one of the Conversations books, where Baba talks internally to him. And there's a quote I copied out that Baba said to Bal internally: letting go of self-blame is a way of trusting in me. It shifts your focus from yourself to awareness of my grace, which is ever flowing to you. I'll read again, because I will sometimes replace self-blame with self-shame, with guilt, with self-obsession, with anything to do where I'm stuck in I, my, me, and mine. Letting go of self-blame is a way of trusting in me. It shifts your focus from yourself to awareness of my grace, which is ever flowing to you. So yeah, that was all. And just that bit about the humiliation of not being able to put things into words. When I understood that there was actually something happening in my brain, and when I understand that, I feel a bit easier about it. It's not like I'm getting into a loop of what's wrong, self-criticism. It helped to break that cycle when I remember it. Anyway, thank you.
Beautiful, Brani. Wonderful. Yeah. Self-compassion, self-acceptance is so critical. Rather than self-improvement. We're so obsessed with self-improvement when we could do a lot by just accepting ourselves and relax a little bit. Yeah.
Next, we have Meher Darwala.
Jai Baba. Whenever I have been to the Samadhi and we are standing in the line for going to darshan, very often people who are new people who come, they always say, what is there? They ask, with a very strong voice, what is there? What will we see there? I say, please go and see your own self. So they say, what do we have to do? I said, go and just pray near this thing, holy, this thing, near the lotus feet. I just say that. So they say, what's that? I said, just go and this thing, see and know from your own mind what you want to, this thing. But some people, have this idea. Are we really telling them what is Baba? Then they ask, is Baba there? Where is he? All these crazy questions. Then how do you, sometimes you don't know how to express them, tell them what is the whole thing. So I always feel, let them go. Some people go, see, open their eyes, and that's the best way. Instead of going on telling them at the Samadhi, because otherwise they just go on trying to question us a lot. I've noticed these people who don't know, some of them, but they really, who are really interested, they really go and pray to Baba. Jai Baba.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. It reminds me every once in a while, a child will come to Baba's house at the center, and they're in there looking for Baba. Where is he? I mean, and I remember, I think he's under the bed. The kid will go under the bed looking for Baba. It's so beautiful. I mean, they think that, it's Baba's house. Where is he? Where, obvious question to a little kid. Okay, next.
Next, Diane or Terry.
When I was little, my mother and sister used to make fun of me and laugh. And I used to get hurt feelings and cry. And when my mother used to tell me all the time, you have to be able to laugh at yourself. You have to be able to laugh at yourself. See if you can create a way, instead of feeling dumb or ashamed or humiliated, that you can laugh at yourself, because nobody's perfect. We're all human beings. And I think that she said it so many times that I think that when I made mistakes, I just laughed, instead of like taking it in really deeply. And I know that the only time I do feel seen in a different way is from my boss, who's a dentist, obviously, and more of a perfectionist than I am. So there are times that when he'll correct me, for a second, my face will flush. And then I go, no biggie, he just helped you. So it's just like kind of using different words sometimes.
Beautiful. Your mom did you a great service, I would say. I mean, that's a deep truth, that she got in there. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me share.
Ahead, Jen.
Meher Chand, I Jasima, your voice is still pretty quiet.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think next we have Meher Chen.
Coming in from Hyderabad.
Yeah. Jai Meher Baba to everyone. Can you hear me out?
Yeah, we hear you.
Jai Meher Baba. There's a beautiful article published in Lord Meher. The source of the article was from the Glow International, May 1980. Lord Meher, page number 51712, where Baba himself has defined what is humiliation. I'll just read that. Now let me first explain what I mean by humiliation. Suppose you are loved by someone very dearly for several years, and one day when you happen to meet him, he suddenly begins to abuse you, kick you, spit you on your face. In this context of your previous relationship with him, your pride becomes an example of humiliation. In the same way, if some person who have previously adored me and raised me up to the skies in adoration of the yearly, and suddenly turns against me and express extremely disdain from me and throwing me in filth, it will be another example of humiliation. I will also give you an example of circumstances under which this kind of things can be happened. You are worshipping me for many years. Suppose you suddenly find me eating garbage, living in rubbish, and roaming about naked in the street, behaving like a madman. What will be your reaction to this behavior of mine? I do not want anyone you to think or say that Baba is going to become mad. On the contrary, I have come to make the whole world mad after the God and truth. Only Avatar, whenever he lives amidst of mankind, has to undergo humiliation. When there are five perfect masters who are God personified, who controls and look after the affairs of universe, what they will need is there for them is to participate in the incarnation of God or earth. They bring him down to the shoulder and suffering of the humanity. The five perfect masters are not as much as scandalized or humiliated as Avatar, have been made to take the human form by the five perfect masters of this age to bear the cross and undergo humiliation. In fact, I put the link in the chat box also, and also in the Facebook of this thing. Sometimes no fault of us will be humiliated. And mostly in Baba's work, sometimes even our egos makes us to go for the humiliation. For example, you have a certain idea to do Baba's work. And even though that is right, sometimes people who are the organizers who are doing the work, they criticize us, they humiliate. But in spite of that, we have to, in many instances, I know one of the incidents, I'll conclude with that. When before the Baba dropped his body, he kept Adi aloof from in a regular this thing. He never allowed Adi to come to Mehrabad also. And he made him to confined only into the trust office and all that. And that time Adi was all the time was feeling why Baba is keeping me aloof. He didn't understood at all. And he used to go into the toilet room or washroom and he used to cry a lot. After dropping of the Baba said he felt that it is an humiliation. But on the contrary, then later realized his own for the betterment of the future, Baba has kept him. He first thought it's an humiliation, but later he realized. With this, I conclude. Avtar Meher Baba ki jai.
Let me add to that. He actually, Baba would, he would go out from the trust compound out to Marazad, and Baba would send a message, what is he doing here? I didn't call him. You know, and even though he was called, and he would be devastated, and he'd go back. He would tell us this, and he would lock himself in his room for 3 days and just humiliated and weep, you know. And then a couple of days later, he would go out to Marazad, and the message to him, I didn't call him. What is he doing here? Why does he keep coming? Baba did that a number of times. But what Adi said, in what Marichan is saying, Baba toughened him up so much that Adi said when Baba dropped his body and he had to stay on his feet and do all the correspondence and communicate with the rest of the world about Baba dropping the body, he was able to do it rather than just going into such grief that he would have been dysfunctional. So he saw, this is an example, a great example of Baba humiliating somebody, but it led to great strength. And he had to find a place within him that was beyond being, vulnerable to criticizing or being ignored. He had to find that place. And Baba forced him into it by humiliating him. Anyway, it's a great example, Meherchand.
Thank you, Jai Meher Baba.
We have Prakash.
Jai Baba. Perhaps what I'm going to say has to do with humiliation leading to strength. You know, this is, I wonder if you guys can hear, because there is this loud noise of this fan running around. Can you hear?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah. So I'm really literally close to this mic. Anyway, as I said again, it's a question of humiliation leading to strength. You know, this has to do with my work. When I was, working at one of the companies I used to work for, and I was a sort of initiate into the kind of work I was doing, and and obviously the work is nowhere near being perfect. So, you know, this guy who I used to work for is literally a perfectionist, just like, Terry was saying about her boss. So, and often he would banter. He would sort of complain and say things that obviously I don't like. I didn't like at the time because of ego and whatever. And but I realized. Once he said that, obviously, I noticed that I was not up to the mark, honestly. And then I would really, really work hard day and night. I would probably sleep about 3-4 hours a night, and it's been almost like, a month or so just to catch up and be at least close to what he thinks where I should be. And so that's what used to happen. And obviously, I felt humiliated, definitely, there's no doubt about it. But then that has led me to work harder and get better at what I'm supposed to do. So, that's why I said it's an example of humiliation that leads you to be more strong and better, and that's my personal experience.
And gave you even more, I guess, more confidence in your work.
Yeah, more confidence, and then
Yeah.
obviously I did find that the banter was becoming less and less as time went by, and and obviously I have also learned over the years. I mean, not at that time, obviously. Like somebody said, letting go is a great way to do things. Now I don't worry at all. I don't know if I give it to Baba all the time, but I do whenever it is really serious. And the other thing I said, I mean, I want to just touch base on what Bronny shared. You know, Bal Natu's conversations with Baba. And I really love that particular article she was quoting, and wherein he says, stay low, go slow. That's a beautiful thing to read, and it really helped me quite a bit.
Oh,
Jai
don't
Baba.
worry, be happy.
Yeah, and be happy. Jai Baba.
Yeah, thank you, Prakash. Very good. Well, no one has their hand raised, but many years ago, I did something very bad, and the psychic effect that it had on me lasted for a couple of years. I mean, it was like I was wearing a football helmet. It was so, and I brought it up, you know, on one of my trips to India with Erich, and you know, I was really upset with myself, and it just continued. You know, even after a trip to India, it was still there, and on the second trip, I was still burdened by this, and I was sitting with Erich in Mandali Hall. Everybody had left, and I was sitting on the floor next to him, and I said to Erich, "Why did this have to happen?" And Erich said, "But you've grown."
I didn't expect it.
And I said, what do you base? I don't understand what you're basing this on. You say I've grown. I don't feel I've grown at all. I'm worse off. And he looks over at me and he says, "Jeff, now you can't hold your head so high." And what I did, you know, so much of my empathy in this life is due to that. That gave me a lot more empathy for others, you know, because I had screwed up royally. Now you can't hold your head so high. So a lot of our humiliations kind of bring us down to at the same level as everyone else. We're nothing special. And like I said earlier, Erich would say, you know, we're all in the same boat. We're all trying to give ourselves to Baba, and, you know, with the difficulties and everything. Anyway.
We have Michael.
Hi.
And Michael's never been humiliated. He's, you know.
I've had more humiliation than, well, I felt at one point that Job and I could sit down and compare notes. So I remember a woman I was dating. We were walking down streets in New York City, and she got frustrated with me, and she slapped me in the street. You know, thousands of people around me. I don't remember what we said. I don't remember what she looked like, but I remember that slap. And then there was a time I was arrested, and that was humiliating. Really wasn't my fault, but still it didn't matter. And to be treated as a as a criminal for something I didn't really do. It was just so, it was humiliating. I mean, I've had one humiliation after another, and it didn't seem to make much sense to me, except that I just wouldn't let go of Baba. I mean, every once in a while I get pissed off at him and give him a piece of my mind. And why was he screwing around with me so much? But still, I figured there was a purpose to it. If he was God and he knew everything, well, then there was a purpose for it. And ultimately, it must be for my good. And so for much of my life, till about 2005, I felt like I was walking through Mirkwood, that very dark forest as described in the Tolkien trilogy. And when I came out of it, it was daylight. And I was very grateful for everything I went through. Anyway, I want to read you a poem which has humiliation in it. You up for that?
Go ahead. Yeah. And read it a little more slowly.
I don't know if I can do that. All right, I will try. It's been over 40 years since that first encounter when you tore the bandage from my eyes, blinding me with your brilliance, reducing me to ashes, leaving me despairing to see your face again. For 10 years, I felt the pain smoldering deep within my breast, like magma waiting for release. Anger surged upon me like squalls at sea. Fury, uncontained by guilt, whipped emotions into mighty waves that threatened others and humiliated me. The fiercest hurricanes and I became kindred souls, dashing ourselves upon the shore, upon your breast. And still I turned and yearned and burned for you, until life and death were nothing more than copper coins thrown upon the ground. Lord, what have you done to me? I had little dreams of peace, respectability, happiness, and marriage, a place to call my own. But not this. Not this devastation, this ravaging of the soul. Nothing prepared me for the agony that consumed me day and night. Your love has laid me bare and naked to the core.
Beautiful, Michael. Really beautiful.
Was that slower?
That was good. I got it word for word.
Good.
No, that was really good.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah. I wish I could write like that.
Well, I could show you.
Hey.
Next, we have, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, okay, let's see. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. So as a young child, I was always very, very introverted, very shy, extremely shy. And could never get over that. And I remember as a young child, one of the first instances I can recall is we had some kind of a religious ceremony at our local Agyari, which is the fire temple. And as a child of about, I would say, 9 or 10, maybe, I was to memorize something and then, say it out, perform it, in other words. A prayer, I forget what it was. And I so clearly remember I was shaking like a leaf. And I go up there and I start to say something and my mind completely blanks out. I mean, totally blanks out, and I'm frozen. And there's a whole audience in front of me, of course. And then my mother had to come up and cue me, and I stumbled and mumbled myself through it. I still remember it was the most humiliating experience of my little life. Well, this feeling, this introversion, this being introverted personality was, with me throughout. And public speaking, of course, my biggest fear. So time goes on, and finally in 2016 when Noshawan had the 50th anniversary for the Glow celebration in New Jersey. And of course, my father's book had been published just a few years before that. He asked me to be one of the guest speakers. My first reaction was, no, Noshawan, I can't do that, because it was a huge event. There were going to be more than 200 people. And me speak, oh my goodness, no, it's not going to happen. But the Noshawan kept encouraging me and saying, think about it, don't give up the idea. And this was like months and months before the event. So I went within myself, I started speaking to Baba, and the more I tried to say no and get out of it, the more Baba would say, this is your time to overcome this fear. I'm there to help you. Leave it to me. You will do this. You will be fine. So I sat, and I remember I spent weeks on the talk because I had to concise my father's entire life into like 1 hour of, so it took me a whole long time to write the speech and whatnot. And then finally the day comes and I'm there and I'm shaking like a leaf. So I go up on stage and I start with a Jai Baba to everyone. And I still remember, I turned to inside, I'm saying, Baba, it's you, not me. Take over. It's you that's going to be delivering this speech. That's the only way I can get through this. And then I started my speech by saying to the audience, now you've heard many wonderful speakers this morning. I'm not one of them. So that's how I sort of, crushed my own little ego right there to help me forward, to go forward. And then I just left it to Baba. I heaved a big sigh of relief and I launched in, and an hour later, there it was, all done. And Baba was like, see, I told you, you could do it. So I did cross that one. Yeah. Jai Baba.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's kind of leading up to it sometimes, like you don't know whether your mind is going to function when the actual time comes,
yes,
even though it works out.
Yes.
But
I mean, I had the whole speech written out. I literally had to just read it, and not,
yeah.
That was my big crutch right there. But without Baba's help internally, I was butterflies inside, but I did manage to go through. It's on YouTube, whatever. So yeah, but I did get through it with Baba's help. Yeah.
Hey, if I may add, Gaur, you did great there. I was there, and I think Jaisim also was there.
I was
and
there.
It was beautiful.
Really enjoyed that.
Really? Oh, thank you. Thank you. I really, you have no idea how I was feeling inside, but I did manage to overcome with Baba's help. So that's wonderful. Yeah. When you give it to him, he really takes over. He does. So I was like, okay, one little victory.
Yeah. And we've had you on twice here to share.
Yeah.
So.
I tell you, these Zoom sessions have helped so much, Jeff. They really have. Yeah. And you just have to, give it to Baba and then just be yourself. Just trust in being yourself. Yeah. That's what it is.
Yeah. And if you feel something deeply enough, the words come.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the feeling that you want to convey rather than how you might feel about conveying, but the actual feeling
yes
provides the words. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Next we have Tony.
Hi, I'm going to turn off the air conditioner and see if you can hear me better. Okay, the fan is off. Is that any better?
Yeah, you're kind of soft, but good.
Okay, because it's not going to work if I shout, because I lose my person. Since I shared a little while ago, I've been kicking myself around, and mainly because I was aware of being really inauthentic. And so I want to correct that. And then there's a little Baba story, short little thing to end with. But when I saw the theme for today, to be really honest, I tried to suppress it, but I got panicky. I don't really I didn't want to talk about humiliation, and shame is the other side of that. because it's something really difficult for me to grapple with, to acknowledge. It's so, my experiences of humiliation or shame, more shame, are so exquisitely painful for me that where I'm really open with myself in so many other areas, where this is concerned, it was like, no, they're not going to talk about this. And I came up with something really good to share, a good story to share. And it was like, no, the truth is what I'm telling you now. Shame in particular, if a situation comes up where someone is constantly going at me with some flaw or shortcoming, even if it's not so, I do my best not to connect with what's happening. And invariably, Baba pushes it to the point where I will feel the shame. And I don't totally understand the whole thing right now. It's clearly something Baba is working in me. And I have never spoken about this before because I feel really uncomfortable and painful and shamed about it. But if we're doing this subject, I really had to share this because that other story, while it's true, and Baba saying, do you have to be so self-critical, is lovely. That was me just trying to cover from being authentic. The second thing is much shorter. In listening to your share and your conversation with Erich, it reminded me of the story that I think many of us, or most of us, will be familiar with. This fellow who was constantly bewailing his own shortcomings and his own failures, and on one matter in particular. And he was sending letter after letter to Baba, expressing his grief and his sorrow about falling so often. And Baba finally said to Erich, and gave him instructions to write back. He said, tell that fool it is my will. And very much in line with what you were saying in your story with Erich. It is his will when we're going through that sort of thing to, I think, break down something in the ego that's still holding on. That's just my guess there. But anyway, I wanted to be honest. I really didn't feel I was honest before.
Beautiful. Tony, that was wonderful. I mean, we all kind of deal with this, and it's hard to actually confess it, so to speak. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Next we have Mayor Prasad.
He's the guy that got us into this. If anybody should be shamed, it's this man right here.
That's right. Exactly. At work, I have to do several presentations to hundreds of people. Typically, the frequency is about once a week, 100 plus people. And I noticed that whenever I have to do this, like I said, it's a frequent thing. And it's been happening for years, but every time I have to do it, leading up to it, I feel the butterflies that Goher was talking about. And after analyzing it, the only thing I could trace it to is the fear of humiliation. I'm just afraid that when I'm presenting, somebody will ask me a question or something, and I will say something stupid or I don't know how to answer it, and I'm humiliated in front of hundreds of people. That is really what I traced it down to. But while doing the presentation itself, I'm not, it doesn't bother me much. But leading up to it is always a thing, and I haven't really overcome that. It still happens to me. I try to give it to Baba, but it's always there. It still happens to me. Even though I've been doing this for years, and it actually seems to be getting worse as I think about Baba more. It gets actually worse. The fears become more and more. I don't know what is the cause behind it, but it's just there. But when I actually do it, I don't have any fear of doing it. While I'm doing it, it's all pretty smooth. But definitely until that time, from the time I know that I'm going to do it until the time I start doing it, that time is always the butterflies. So,
Oh, yeah.
I don't have a solution to it. I'm just saying that that is what my state is.
You know, it's interesting. Some of the greatest actors and actresses who, I mean, they're incredible on the stage, you know, just go through horrible bouts of terror. And, you know, I remember at the center one time, a program way back in the 70s, and all we had to do is read these Baba quotes. And there were a number of us, and we were all so nervous, you know, and I mean, all we had to do is read. I mean, it's not like getting up and formulating things, you know. And we went to Jane Haynes, who was an actress. She was a Broadway actress and everything, told her, we are having, you know, real trouble with this. And she said, this is an interesting thing. If you don't feel nervous beforehand, that nervousness and everything, you actually is stirring up your soul so that when you actually speak, so much comes through. If you could just walk in, just pick up this piece of paper and read it, you know, there wouldn't be much of you in it. But there, you know, it's as disturbing as it is, there, you know, by the time you actually get there, there is so much of you in it. That was the way she, and we actually felt a lot better. That helped me over the years, you know, that if I was just so glib, you know, there wouldn't be all of that, all that's been stirred up in me coming out. Anyway, that was a beautiful tip from Jane Haynes.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Next we have Janet.
Yeah, some of the things that you all have said have triggered memories for me, and also just one that was a long time ago, that was a little bit like Gohar's, was I had a piano recital, and there was a change at the last minute of the song I was playing, and it was just a series of chords in minor key. And we had to have it memorized, which apparently I didn't have done very well. And I hit the first chord. and it was just fortunate that it was in a minor key, because, I mean, I didn't play. I mean, it was like, I mean, I was a teenager, a young teenager, you know, maybe 13 years old or something. I didn't play one chord correctly through the whole thing. I mean, and then the teacher had chosen me to get up after to get up and invite people to come have refreshments or whatever. And so after I had just done this completely humiliating thing, I had to stand up in front of everyone and you know, pretend like I was not a piece of ground dirt, you know. I mean, it was so bad. Well, I mean, truthfully, I have never played the piano again. Never. I mean, it would chase me away from the instrument totally. But yeah, I mean, I can still feel the humiliation, and that is 60 years ago, you know. I can still, that's what's so amazing, is how it stayed with me. You know, I mean, not that and my mother, who is tone deaf, said afterwards, she said, well, I thought it was good. Anyway, it was like such a blessing to have a mother who was tone deaf at that moment.
That's why she was chosen to be your mother in this lifetime.
That's right.
Just for that moment.
Because otherwise she would have been even more humiliated than I was. Yeah, because she was the type who would be. But anyway, that was many years ago. But just recently, I with my job, I talk to people in their homes. Anyway. And I had actually visited this woman in her home, and what I do is I sell Medicare supplemental kinds of insurance. So just to kind of full disclosure. So it's complicated. And I was working with a woman who lived in this country for a long time, but she's of Mexican origins. And so, I mean, she speaks perfect English, but there was one point in which we made a phone call to someone else, and she was trying to explain something to someone, and I took the phone so that I could do the explaining. So about a week later, she called me back and said to me, "I don't think I can work with you." And that has never happened before. Well, I mean, if it's happened before, they haven't told me. And I was very, I mean, because this is my job, and because I don't want to have people complaining about me, and because of Mara Baba, who I have picture right beside me at my computer while I'm doing anything, I listened, and I really ate crow. I apologized thoroughly. I mean, not just words. I felt really badly, and she felt it as somewhat of a racial incident, and that was very hard. And yeah, so the whole episode was humiliating. But I mean, I just want to say, thanks to Mara Baba, the net result is that everything worked out, and we kind of have a very good rapport at this point, an extremely good rapport. But for a period of time, I mean, it was to be reflected back to you that you were mistreated someone in that kind of a way, and it had a racial overtone for her. I mean, I don't feel it had a racial overtone, but of course she did, and I respect that. But nonetheless, it was, I got to have Baba take me into a deeper place of humility. And so I'm appreciative of that. But it was a pretty startling journey. And this just happened a couple of weeks ago. So obviously, my humiliations have not come to an end.
Yeah. And it's certainly, these things are so valuable in retrospect, but at the time, they are really hard to swallow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes they're humorous, like, like your piano.
Well, it wasn't humorous then at all.
Yeah, no, but I mean, when you talk about it later,
Oh God. Yeah. Yeah.
It's, oh yeah, it would be interesting to hear all of the people's most embarrassing moments here. We would be amazed at what's here. Go ahead.
This goes years and years back when I first came as a new bride to this country. And my husband's a kind of a willful person. He's a doctor. And, whenever we'd go out somewhere, he would meet people in the street, or we lived very close to the hospital, and he would meet his colleagues or co-workers, whatever. And he would just start chatting with them, and I'd just be standing there beside him, and then we would just move on after he finished his conversation. So whether it was in an elevator, on the street, whatever, I just got used to being in the background. Okay. This one day we were going somewhere, and we were going to Long Island or something. And he said to me, well, grab a bunch of change because we're going to be going through a lot of toll booths. So I used to collect change for the laundry. So I just grabbed a bunch of coins in my right hand, and we were running out the door. So we ran out and came down to the basement. And as we were going out the parking lot out there, he sees one of his attendings, coming through, and this big doctor from the hospital. And he says, oh, he carries on a conversation at first. And then all of a sudden he turns and he said, oh, by the way, this is my wife. I was so flustered because he had never done that before. So I threw my hand out to shake hands, and all the coins in my hands like spread all over the place. Can you just picture that? I mean, his mouth was open. I was flabbergasted. I was hoping the earth would open up and swallow me. Never have I been so, embarrassed in my whole life. But hey, that's all. I put it all on him. So.
Oh, that's.
So sometimes these things do happen. Yeah.
The money just kind of, goes right through our hands.
I just totally forgot I had a whole bunch of change in my hand. Me at the last minute. So anyway.
Next, we can have Rosalie because she raised her hand for the first time. Rosalie?
The first time ever? I don't think so. My most embarrassed, this was beyond embarrassment. My favorite person ever was Mara, Baba's Mara. And this particular time on the porch with Mara, this book was passing around. People were looking at it, and I looked at it, and then people chat while the book's passing around. And I wasn't really interested in the book, so I went like this to pass it to someone that was sitting probably in the bed, and the only comfortable chair other than the chair Mara sits in. She was sitting opposite Mara. And all of a sudden, I hear Mara very clearly say, Rosalie, I am talking to her. Have you no manners? How were you brought up? Ooh. And I have to say, it was a great grace because in the household where I grew up, I feel it's my good fortune that I'm walking and talking. So, but it was almost like Mara, in saying this, lanced my childhood. And when you have something lanced, there's this tremendous pressure before the lancing. And the lancing is just beyond pain. It's beyond pain. And I remember screaming out to Baba inwardly, screaming Baba's name, but it was inwardly. And then so much tears came out, no sound, absolutely no sound. Baba never liked Mara upset. That I knew. There was no sound, but I wanted to get off the porch, try to get away. But because I could hardly see, because it was just tears, I've never cried like that in my life. And I turned around to see how I could get off and go into Baba's bedroom. And it was obvious. I would have had to say something. So I just was there. So, and then, time passed, whatever. It was like eternity. But I knew after what a great grace it was, because a certain amount of pain I had accumulated just from my childhood trying to deal with it. And then my favorite person ever, lancing it is all I could say. She lanced it. And, she didn't say it. It wasn't in a mean way, but it was very deliberate, she pronounced my name very carefully. I couldn't think she was talking to someone else on the porch. And so at any rate, I think it's good that I remained there. And the wonderful thing about Mara was it was gone. You know, something happened and then it was just gone. You know, it was rather bad. Of course, I'll never forget it. And I don't think anyone on that porch will ever forget it, because that could have been anyone on that porch, is what I felt. You know, I thought, you know, but my two most humiliating, you could call it humiliating. It was beyond humiliation. You know, it's like, I don't know. It's just, it was, they say if someone high like that would hit you, well, it was beyond getting hit, because it was like laser, you know. So it was certainly a great grace, and then it was like over. And then, you know, Mara was just Mara, beautiful Mara. And nothing more was said, and no one said anything. And then when that happens, you know, everyone knows it could have been them, you know, and you almost feel people's compassion, you know, that could have been me. Anyway, that was my experience. Call it humiliation, whatever. It was certainly, it was a reality check.
Yeah,
from
beautiful.
From a very real person. Yeah.
Thank you. Very descriptive. And you know, good that it was you, Rosalie, not us.
Really.
Thank you for taking the rap. Okay, who?
Next, we have Michael.
I was about 11 years old, and I was playing the guitar maybe 6 months. And can you hear me okay? Yeah, there we go.
We hear you good.
When I don't see the whole box, I worry. And I was playing in a quartet of beginning guitar students. And we were all about the same age. And we were sight reading a single note kind of piece. And I was struggling with this piece because I'm a terrible sight reader. I've always been one. And, but I got through it. And one young man stands up, who's opposite me, points at me and says, because it was terrible, the whole thing was terrible and I was ruining it. He points his finger at me and says, "It's his fault. This is an auditorium with all the parents. This is a recital." And so I got to be humiliated on stage at the age of 11. I remember that one. And then when I was hanging out at the NPR while my son healed from a hip surgery in 2011, we would go visit Bao quite a bit. And as I've mentioned before, I've been married before, but I always told people I was married 4 times because I figured 5 really sounds bad. I mean, 4 sounds bad, but I thought maybe 5 was even worse. And it was only for 10 weeks. I really didn't read that woman very well at all. And so Bao turns to me and says, and he's testing me like a master and a disciple, like Baba would ask somebody to take off their clothes in Amrit Nagar, that kind of thing. And he turns to me and says, "How many times have you been married, Michael?" And I had a moment's hesitation, and I knew that if I wasn't absolutely honest, it would cost me the relationship, the intimacy. So I said 5 times. And he had that way about it of saying, kind of grunting or saying, without saying anything. And we became really good friends out of that. Well, not out of that, but in the course of that. I always felt he was Baba. And it was like Baba wearing a bow skin, like Baba was behind him, but it was bow, what you saw. And I didn't quite understand that, because I knew he was 6th plane, but was he 7th? It was just, I was curious about it in my mind. And then I read that passage in Padre's biography, where Baba wouldn't take over somebody, but he'd work with them in consort. So it'd be Padre delivering Baba's message in Padre's words. And that's how it was with me and Bao at that time. It was really wonderful. So that's the end of my story. Oh, what I want to tell you about reading the poetry. I got so distracted when I read the poetry at first, because I look at people's faces and I get caught up in what they were thinking. So I talked to an actor, and he asked me, for whom is the poetry written, and to whom are you reading it? And I said, God, in both instances. So what I do is I put Baba at the back of the room. And then I get to pour my heart out to him. And if you happen to be listening, that's good. But poetry is from him, goes back to him.
Beautiful.
Say Baba.
And we're just all eavesdroppers in this. Beautiful. Okay.
Next we have Brani.
Thank you, Michael. That was beautiful. And it sort of fits in with a quote I'm trying to remember. And if anyone can remember the exact words, I've been looking for it. It's from Baba. And it's about, I think it's about when something happens, it's really difficult. Like, and in this case, I'm thinking about being humiliated, when I feel humiliated and when I feel I want to defend myself, and why can't I speak up for myself, and what, all that loop. And then he said something like, be like a football when it's kicked. Do you remember this quote? Be like a football when it's kicked. Go with it, soar with it into Baba, really, into that silence, into that stillness, into that space. And for me, sometimes I will see myself, I've been kicked, and I really want to kick back, or I really want to complain. I really want to put it right. I really want to explain myself, or whatever it is. And then if I go quiet, and if I really remember that it's an opportunity to let it go and just open into Baba. It's pushing me into Baba, pushing me into Baba. Does anyone remember that quote from somewhere?
Yes, I put it in the chat, Bronnie, so you can see the quote and also a link to where I found it.
Do you want to read it, Josh, or shall I read it? It's beautiful. You read it, Josh.
Okay.
If you want to.
No, I'd love to. Okay. Be like a football, which never cries out or complains when kicked. Its fortune is to receive kicks, and the force and height of its kicks are its beauty. You too should try to reach the level of accepting and remaining humble and unaffected by kicks, criticisms in brackets. My kicks will raise you up higher, infinitely higher and beyond. The greater the force of the kick to the football, the higher it flies. Similarly, you will also rise high above the world.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. And
Yeah,
Rosalie,
excellent.
it fits in with you, Rosalie. You had that terrible kick, that ultimate kick, really, from Mayra. And then you stayed with it. You didn't kick back. You stayed there. And look, she lanced that wound, and it was probably a long kick, into the heavens, really. Beautiful. Yeah.
No, but with Mara, I loved Mara if I loved anyone. I mean, so that was the difference, because I could feel the love from her.
Yeah.
Definitely. Even though I could also feel my childhood, and she was actually being a mother to me to relieve me of that pain.
But wouldn't that be beautiful if I hear that, and that's so beautiful that you had that faith and that trust that it was she was doing a favor for you. I just wish I could apply that to everything, like wherever I feel kicked, to see it as Barbara's doing, then I no, it's not like, I can't live that. I would love to be able to truly live that, what you're saying, that it's actually every moment is Baba doing something with us to bring us close to him.
Yeah, but I think everything, like whatever I experienced on the porch and I share, that can be your experience too, because you're identifying with it.
Yeah.
Mara, and I heard Mara say, she says, I'm mother to you all. She didn't say it at that moment, but she was like this beautiful, loving God person, just so loving. And but discriminating, and I found her so spontaneous and and yet she didn't push her really her royalty. She just was what she was,
just being natural.
And that was just so beautiful to see. She totally loved Baba. That was her whole life. So you were like sitting with someone that you'd want your life to be like that, just loving Baba. What else can we be doing? Yeah. So but I don't think it's just my experience. And even to everyone on that porch at the time, I thought they all think that could have been me, but it was lucky me. And it can be lucky you. It's not these things that take place with these beautiful, especially Mara, the waves go out and out and out. It's like they don't stop. It's like.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
I would just like to be able to, in my everyday life, feel it as Baba, Mayra, Baba's, what you experienced. And there are times when I do, and when I do, then I feel the truth of what that football, the football going into Baba.
You just need more kicking.
Yeah. I've got plenty of kicking.
Let's see what VJ has to say.
Jai Baba, I was not in a mood to speak and only to listen, but Rosalie's story gave me such a kick, and I was provoked to talk. And Rosalie, what a blessing that you could provoke Mehra, such a anger, such a quiet and peaceful lady who is absorbed in Baba always. And you could provoke her. You must be great. I think it's it's the best story, I think, and you got the best blessing. I think you are the blessed one. And and of course, I had something like Mehra told me, you should have told him thank you. like that, but that was very soft, and I really consider as a blessing that oh, Mara told me like this, and Rosalie, it's a blessing for the lifetime for you.
Sure.
And that takes me back to my 9-year-old story when I aroused anger. Arch, like anything, that he was about to beat me up. Means at Guru Prasad, I was peeping into Baba's room through the when Baba was calling each one one by one, and I couldn't stop my curiosity. I was so restless to see Baba first time. And so I went to the window and peeping into his room, and then marriage comes from the back. He grabs my collar, he pulls me, and he said, close the window, and whose son you are. And somebody passerby, he closes the shutter. He said, he opens it. No, let him close it.
Oh
My God, such anger, and I was so nervous, so frightened. And then after some time in front of Baba, and then everything was gone. And so but I feel these are such a blessing. And humility, I think we have to face humility in everyday life, day-to-day life, every day. Every day is a humiliation. And that disconnects us with the world. That shows the vanity of the world. That, if you rely on the world, you depend on the world, any relation, anything, it's you have to be get humiliated. Only rely on Baba. So humiliation is really a strength, and I think every day still we go. And humility, if we feel humiliated, it shows us that we are connected with the world. So that's hammering us, chiseling us every day. And every day Baba is shaping us. So we should appreciate humiliation. Means that way, means that Baba is chiseling us, and we are more and more getting closer to Baba. Yeah. And actually, there is so much to talk, but
Actually,
it's okay. Yeah.
BJ,
Go on.
when I think of it, because she pronounced my name so deliberately, not just Rosalie, Rosalie. There can be no mistake.
What a blessing, Rosalie. You are very special.
You know, so one of the things, one of our big fears and behind humiliation is being worried about what other people think. And Meru, I remember Meru telling this. I don't know if I remember all the details right, but she was about maybe 19 or early 20s, somewhere in there. And Bob had taken the women out to the theater to see a movie. So the women are there, and there's a family that's in front of them. And before the movie starts, Baba asked Meru to go down and ask this family who are in front of them to move. So she does that, and it's kind of embarrassing to ask. I think it was kind of an elegant family, but they do move. Then the movie starts, and then part way into the movie, Baba asks her to ask them to move again. So she's got to go down there and ask them. I mean, this is like a young woman. I mean, it's so different from this country. So she goes down and she asks them to move again, and they do move again. And then she comes back and sits down. And the movie goes on, and the Baba says to go down again a third time. And she just could not do it. She just that was just a bridge too far. She was just not going to do it. And Baba was very upset with her, but she just couldn't do it. But it's things like that where they got so strong, the mandali, that they didn't really care what other people thought about them. They cared about other people, but not what other people thought about them. And, you know, of course, you all know that story. Mayor Prasad can probably remember what Baba gave to Ramju Abdullah when he was trying to sell his shop. You know, I have not yet sold my shop. That was, you know, horrible. I don't know. Mayor Prasad, can you remember that well enough?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I remember all the details, but the main part was that anytime he met anyone, he was supposed to say, I have not sold my shop yet. And once he was confronted with the situation where one of his close relatives passed away, and he was supposed to meet them. And when he met them, the first thing he had to say was, I have not sold my shop yet. And that is not something you want to say to someone who just had a bereavement in their family. So, you know, that was a very humiliating thing for him to do, but he did it.
Yeah, I mean, what he accidentally did was there was a funeral procession, and he was trying to avoid it, and he actually went right into it. So he had to go through the entire funeral procession and say, you know, first, I have not yet sold my shop, you know, and then express the grief. And then the next person, he had to go through the whole funeral procession with saying this. I mean, totally inappropriate. But he was a pretty strong guy by the time he carried out that order. Anyway, let's see. I'm thinking that it's kind of late, and I'm wondering if we have. I'm wondering. I think someone read a very good quote, but do we have like a quote for the here at the end?
I have a quote, but it's not necessarily related to humiliation. But I see Bronnie's hand up.
Oh, she's the one that read a very good quote. Yeah, Bronnie, do you have a quote? Well, we can't hear you though.
The one I was thinking of reading might be a bit long though. It's called Humility. You know Malcolm Schloss?
Yeah, go ahead and read it, and then we'll have a moment of silence afterwards.
It's called Humility, and it's about 4 or 5 verses. Humility is lowly. And by the way, in case you don't know, Malcolm Schloss was one of the ones with Baba at Nasik in the 1930s. And Baba wanted him to write, put his teachings, Baba's fundamental teaching is into verse. So this is the one on humility. Humility is lowly like the earth. It lends itself completely to God's will. It brings his vision momently to birth, yet of its labors rests completely still. Humility is brilliant like a star that shines in unseen splendor all the day. Invisible its ministrations are, till darkness brings its power into play. Humility is carefree and serene. It sees and serves the one alike in all, cares not for what shall be, nor what has been, but in each present moment finds its call. Humility is lowly like the earth, yet like the earth, 'tis fruitful, fragrant, strong. It leads the soul to freedom from rebirth through selfless service rendered with a song. Forbearance wins the blessing of God's grace. And forgiveness is the cleanser of the soul. Of self remove the last remaining trace, and serve in all humility the whole. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Boy, thank you all for sharing and bearing your soul. This is,
Jai Meher
and
Baba,
I'm
Jeff.
sure, what's that?
Jai Meher Baba, it's Meher Chand.
Yeah.
I want to say one more thing, as to add to one thing is Baba creates the situation of humility, and that is the disguised in boon. He wants to clean our samskaric dirt. That was one of the stories Baba narrated in The Real Treasure, Volume 4. That I forgot to mention it, so I want to share it now. He cleans our dirt, of samskaric dirt. Samskaric dirty, we can say. Samskaric dirt.
Yeah, that's,
Jai Meher Baba.
yeah, thank you.
So, Jeff, I wonder
Yeah.
if I might read something. I was going to put it in the chat, but it wouldn't fit. It's about Mara, this discussion on Mara.
Okay, yeah.
Can you still see me? Because I'm looking at another page now.
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay, this is something I wrote on Friday morning. It just came to me. I called it an interesting thought. I just had an interesting thought. What if Mara was your mother? Not to knock your own mother, but someone who came so perfectly from love, from Baba. Wow. How would your life be different? How is your life different just now, thinking about this? Wow. All your mother issues gone instantly. All that woundedness that got passed down or propagated, gone. Just love, pure love, nothing but love. Especially if you've met her, just take a moment to let it in. Not the goddess you met, admit it, she had the radiance of Tolkien's Galadriel. Not the most beloved of the most beloved one, not the purest soul in the universe, not the divine beloved's feminine counterpart, but your mother. Okay, all of that, but also your mother. From the very beginning of your life, through all your moments, to now and beyond. Always present, always near, always here when you need her. Now imagine that she is. Because as the feminine face of the divine, the feminine face of Baba, she actually is in this eternal, everlasting present. Wow. Thanks.
Beautiful.
Hey, Baba.
Let me just say one thing, and then I'll have Paula give the actual what Mara said. But there was one lady that used to come to the center. She grew up, she was a Cherokee Indian, but Catholic, and she had always taken shelter in in the Virgin Mary. That got her through the Virgin Mary got her through so many difficult times. And she had 4 children. She was a single mother for years and years, and always taking shelter in Mary. And then she heard of Baba, and she became a Baba person there in Atlanta, and she went to India, and Mara, one of the things that Mara used to do is she would there on the side of the main house there was an herb garden and flowers and everything, but mainly herbs, and she was going around and taking Maureen around and showing her, just the two of them, and she had an umbrella, Mara did, and at one point when they were together, Mara looked at Maureen, and Paula, you remember what she said.
Yeah, she stopped and looked at her and said, "When you prayed to Mary, it was I who heard you."
Wow.
Yeah. And
Say that again.
and she also said, "I have always been helping you." You know.
Paula, can you say that again? I mean, what you just said.
Yeah, when she said, when you pray, this woman had such a hard life, and when she prayed to Mary, what she noticed was things would lighten up. You know, it would get a little bit better. So the impression I have is that they were walking around the garden, and quite suddenly Mary just stopped and looked at her and said, you know, it must have been a surprise, but she said, "When you prayed to Mary, it was I who heard you."
Thank you.
And she hadn't even said anything about her
Mm-mm.
relationship with Mary prior to that. Hey, so we got Rosalie. Is it a?
I had a quick quote that I love. Baba says, "Don't feel down by what I bring up in you."
Yeah, beautiful. Don't feel down by what I bring up in you. So anyway, I think we this is a good time. It's kind of late. You guys are going to be late for work or half dead tomorrow. Anyway, Jay Baba, everybody, and what it's Nasreen. We got to get Nasreen to
Yes, I'm here. I'm here, Jeff. Okay.
Nasreen. Oh,
Yes.
go ahead.
Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Jay.
Avatar
Meher
Meher
Baba
Baba ki jai.
Jai.
Avatar Meher Baba ki
Baba
jai.
ki Jai.
Avatar
Jai
Meher
Baba.
Baba ki jai.
Hey, Namrata.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah,
Rosalie.
thank you
Thank
guys.
you.
You all.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
I've got. I'm thinking for Saturday. I don't know. I mean, next Sunday or next Tuesday. There's a beautiful quote, and I'll send it to you from Baba. That's a very powerful quote. And Darwin Shaw said that he had a cosmic experience from this. The first line of what Baba said to Balkauchuri is, "With me, no one can live what the world considers a moral life." Pretty provocative. There's more to it. There are 3 paragraphs. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Little challenge. Will challenge you. Yeah. Jay Baba.
Not all.
Jai Baba, Jai Baba. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, all of you.